Look, I'm just gonna get right into it. I fing loved this movie. I knew nothing about it before Plummer mentioned it, and honestly, after watching the new Hellboy, the review for which is up on the channel, by the way, I was pretty much down to watch anything. What a joy it was to watch Mr. Crocket. If you haven't seen the movie or any promotional material, then let me set the stage for you. Mr. Crocket starts off simply enough in the early 90s in the small and impoverished town of Sherry Bottom, I want to say it's called Sherry Bottom, where a young boy named Darren is sitting in front of his TV watching a VHS copy of Mr. Crockett's World before he's being called over for dinner. Now, Darren refuses to eat, and his inebriated stepfather starts berating him and threatening to force feed him. This leads to the best introduction of Mr. Crocket possible, as he looks off to the side of the TV, slowly descends off screen, and he peeks out the VHS flap. No kidding, right out the VHS flap before appearing in the real world. I can't overstate how much that made me laugh, and I was suddenly filled with joy at this outlandishly cartoonish introduction. It was perfect and set the tone for what I had hoped would be a pretty wild ride. After comically dispatching the stepfather, we get a small time jump where we are introduced to our protagonist, Summer. Summer is in the middle of trying to explain to her son, Major, that they need to go into the church to say goodbye to the father, his father, who had recently passed. It is then shown that Major is more focused on his game gear than the passing of his father, and we discover that Major is definitely some level of autistic. After the funeral, Major is confronted by Darren's mother, Rhonda, who warns him, in that creepy movie way they do, that Mr. Crocket will be coming, and he needs to leave with her if he's going to avoid being taken by him when he arrives. Summer chases Rhonda off. Rhonda sings a few lines from one of Crockett's creepy songs about friendship, and they move on. We're then treated to a pretty excellent sequence of events showing just how difficult it is for Summer to try and take care of Major on her own, but her dedication to not giving up, this is incredibly important because it really made me empathize with her. We see her just get put through the ringer. She even does this self-help tape that is just absolutely bonkers and also played for laughs. You know, she's trying her best, but this is the early 90s in a poor black neighborhood and her options are pretty limited. She is visibly exhausted and so spent that we forgive her when the Mr. Crocket VHS shows up magically in her front yard, along with some other pretty funny titled movies, by the way. You know, this calms Major down and he starts watching the Mr. Crocket VHS. And at first, his mother, Summer, is relieved, but Major becomes obsessed with the VHS. And when she tries to take it away from him, things escalate quickly. Now, this all happens within the first 30 minutes of a 90-minute movie, which is such an appropriate runtime. I really appreciate it. The movie does follow traditional horror movie pacing and plotting, so there's really nothing new under the sun plot-wise. But the aesthetic of wrapping it all in this The Ring meets Nightmare on Elm Street meets the inherent creepiness of a grown man hosting a children's show, right? Because we've all seen Blue's Clues and stuff like that. It's creepy. It's just delightful. And a lot of what makes this movie a success for me has to be Elvis Nolasco as the titular Mr. Crocket. Like all good horror movies, you need a captivating villain, and Nolasco is magnetic as Mr. Crocket. He plays the character with such anger and creepiness, with such presence, that everything he does is both threatening and genuinely darkly comedic. There's a scene where he sings a song about sharing while making a man slowly turn a gun on himself that had me in stitches. I cannot stress enough how brilliant and absurd this movie can be. Another cool positive thing is all the practical puppetry in it. They all look great, and there's a real emphasis on those practical effects whenever possible. I mean, this really shines in the finale, but I won't go into spoilers in this review, so watch it. You'll see what I'm talking about in the third act. It's pretty cool stuff. It should be noted I had 0 beers while watching Mr. Crocket, and I still had a blast, so I can only imagine having a brew or two with some buddies and enjoying this. It would probably be divine. I saw some complaints online that the movie is predictable, and to be fair, it is, especially with the introduction of a certain character later on into the movie. They don't do a very subtle job of setting up this character and what their stakes are. I actually turned to Plummer and pretty much spelled out the rest of that character's role in the movie, and it played out exactly as I had anticipated. I don't see that so much as a bad thing, but rather another logical avenue to explore Mr. Crocket, so I was fine with it. Minor spoiler, but not really. There's a sequence where Mr. Crocket gathers the children he has taken to tell them his origin story during story time. And I looked at Plummer and said, this would be the perfect time for an animated segment. And fuck me, they did it. I was ecstatic. This movie really did check a lot of boxes for me. It was silly, gory fun. Loved Mr. Crocket as a villain. I was really cheering on Summer as she went on the quest to rescue her son from Crocket. There's fun lore, interesting visuals, dynamite acting, and of course, that excellent 90-minute runtime. They even nailed the ending of the movie, setting up a potential sequel, but not like in a cheesy way. They earn it by using established lore. And, like the characters, even though they go on their journey, they still have their flaws. So, like, it really did pay off. I could probably talk about this movie for much longer, simply based on how jazzed I was watching it. Honestly, the amount of fun I had with Mr. Crocket cannot be stressed enough. So I recommend getting together with some friends, grab a drink, enjoy this movie. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Until next time.